Hi, my name is Heather Marinko, and today I'm going to be talking about trophy hunting in Africa and the good that comes with it. What is trophy hunting? According to Mark Carwiden, he defined trophy hunting as the shooting of carefully selected animals with the intention of harvesting their horns, antlers, or pelts. Trophy hunting has lots of benefits to different areas. The things that I'm going to be talking about today that trophy hunting benefits is the economy of the countries, the food source that it provides, as well as the conservation that it funds, as well as benefits. Trophy hunting is an essential part of the African culture, as well as the communities that it revolves in. Without trophy hunting, none of these things that I just mentioned would be possible or not as successful. Trophy hunting is proven to do more good than it does harm, even though a lot of people have different opinions. First, I'm going to be talking about the contribution to the economy that trophy hunting has. According to an article published in 2018 by Science Direct, the yearly cost of one trophy hunt in Africa is $28,720. That's just for one trophy hunt. And in the year of 2015 and 16, there was nearly 7,600 people that booked hunts in Africa, which contributed to the yearly income that Africa received of $214 million just alone from trophy hunting. $214 million is a lot of money. And if you eliminate trophy hunting out of Africa, you're reducing their income by a lot of money. Without that $214 million, the economy in Africa is going to tank really fast. It provides so much money to the economy, and if you don't have that, your economy is going to be less successful, and it's going to happen really quick. Next, I'm going to talk about the food source that trophy hunting provides to these communities in Africa and the tribes. Beck Byfield is a biologist, and he published an article in 2019 on the website IamHunter.com. Since he's a biologist, he was doing a study based on what happens to the meat when these animals are harvested, because it is trophy hunting, and as I stated earlier, trophy hunting is defined as when someone wants the antlers, the horns, or the pelt, and not the meat. And in a lot of cases, it's illegal to even transport the meat into the United States due to laws regarding transporting these things because if they have like diseases or stuff like that, so you have to be really careful, and in a lot of cases you're not even allowed to do it. And in a lot of times people think that during these trophy hunts, the hunters will just take the antlers or the pelts and then just leave the meat to rot or for the other animals to feed off of, and that's not necessarily true. When Beck Byfield went on this study, he went to a bunch of different outfitter companies, and in every one that he went on, there wasn't a single time where the meat was wasted. All the meat that was harvested from these trophy animals was either consumed on their hunt, and their guides would cook it for the hunters so they could get a culture experience and try new different types of meat. And anything that they didn't use while on their hunt is donated to the tribes and local communities. In a lot of these local communities, and especially in southern Africa, they have a huge lack of food source, and so when these hunters are donating their food to these communities, it's a huge relief for families, especially ones with lots of children who are struggling to find food for their families. They hugely appreciate all of this meat that is being donated, and when 7,600 people are going on these hunts, and a lot of times when people go on these hunts, they're not just going to harvest one animal, they harvest multiple. And so that's a lot of meat getting donated to these communities, which is a huge relief for families. And they also use some of the meat that is harvested for some of their local parties. When they do like gatherings, they will cook some of the meat that the hunters have harvested for these, so they don't have to pay for it because everything's donated. He also was talking about how the communities don't just use the meat, they use every part of the animal that they can, such as the bones or the ligaments and the tendons. They use them in like different types of dishes. And he quoted in one of his articles by saying, "We're always surprised at how industrious locals are at using every part of the animal." He was talking about how when they were done, there was pretty much nothing left of the animal unless it was absolutely unusable. Everything that they would harvest pretty much got used, down to the bones, to their teeth they would use as necklaces. So nothing gets wasted, even though it's a huge misconception that on these trophy hunts, anything besides the antlers just get thrown to waste. Next, I'm going to talk about conservation and how trophy hunting funds the conservation in Africa, as well as helps make it more successful. In the United States, our government funds our conservation programs and employees, but in Africa, the government doesn't fund it as much. So they have a huge lack of conservation programs, which is really detrimental to their wildlife populations, because if you don't have anyone maintaining them or controlling them, then they get out of hand or species are going to go extinct. So all the money that is coming from these hunts is going towards funding for the conservation programs. They use this money to start new programs, monitor programs that are already in place, hire new employees so they can make sure that the populations that are in Africa are being maintained to where they're at a correct populations, where they don't have too many and are overrunning other populations, or don't have too little to where they're ending up on the endangered species list. National Geographic did a study on this, and biologist Peter Lindsay wrote an article about it in 2017. He said that hunters in these areas, like the guide outfits that take these hunters on their hunting trips, team up with the biologists and conservation groups. So they have people on both ends helping with these programs. So they have the hunters going out who see it like face to face when they're out on hunts, on how many people or how many animals are in these populations or in these herds. And they have the biologists who do the research behind it. And then with the collaboration between both ends of these parties, they can find a balance on how to maintain these species and making sure all the populations are in proper balance. He was said in one of his articles, without trophy hunting, we couldn't maintain the populations and better each country's conservation programs. The hunting outfits that participate with these biologists, they have to pass many different regulations, so they don't just hire anyone that they just hear of. The hunting outfits that they partner with have to pass animal welfare checks to make sure they're not poaching illegally or hunting these animals unfairly. And so they're using hunting outfits that are doing it fair and proper. That way they're making sure that the hunting that is taking place is ethical. So they're not just going in and killing too many or the wrong species. And so by doing this, they're making sure that the conservation programs that they have are successful and ethical. So, because they don't want people just going in and killing random animals or not knowing how many are being killed. So they're using hunting outfits that are being honest in how many animals they're harvesting, so they can make sure the conservation programs as well as the wildlife in these areas is the best it can be. In conclusion, without trophy hunting, the economies in Africa, as well as different places all over the world, would be less successful and less prosperous. Trophy hunting brings such a large amount of money, not only to Africa, but countries all across the world. New Zealand also has a huge industry of trophy hunting that contributes to its economy hugely. In addition to the economy, without trophy hunting, the food sources in these communities would be way less. The animals that are harvested play a huge role in these tribes' food source and the communities that are around. Lastly, without trophy hunting, the conservation groups in these areas would be lacking and not as prosperous and successful. Trophy hunting not only is joyful for the people who do want to go on these hunts, but it's beneficial to the entire continent and everywhere around it, because it's making sure that the wildlife populations that are in this area are the best they can be and not going extinct and not going too out of hand. We also need to change the negative view that trophy hunting has, because like social media and all that makes it to seem like trophy hunting is unethical and it's super not fair to the animals, but social media blows stuff out of proportion. And so I think people need to look at the actual facts like I presented in this presentation and realize that trophy hunting actually does more good than it does harm to not only Africa, but different places all across the world.